All right, hello YouTube. So you guys actually really enjoyed the video from yesterday, so I figured I'll do a somewhat similar format. As many of you probably know, but some of you may not, there was a crafting test last night. It was meant to be on Monday, but they were pretty dumb and didn't give the players blueprints. So we finally got them last night, and we were able to craft. So the first time ever, I crafted, and together with the guys that I played with last night, as well as some of the people in Twitch chat, we kind of put together a bit of an outline for you about what happened. I know some YouTubers, like you can check out 10 Pound 42's video on this whenever he posts it. I don't know if he has or not yet, but they'll be like, he literally drew the UI. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to reference the old UIs that we saw at CitizenCon 2024 and kind of show what changed a little bit and stuff like that. But we're going to go over everything from material quality and gathering to the blueprints and fabricator and dismantling, as well as, like, you know, what sort of stats were changed, how the weapons felt that we made, stuff like that. So let's start out with like the material quality and gathering. It was very much like what we saw at CitizenCon 2024, but not exactly explained, not exactly as was explained when they talked about the new kind of changes that are coming to planets. None of that was in material quality and gathering. I do not think was the full intention of the test. I think what's on the screen is the best example of what that was like. This was the first thing that I found. I found some apherite. And do you notice how it says quality 656? Well, guess what? When we're currently playing, there is no way to tell what the quality is unless you're in a like mining ship, like a prospector. You could scan it and see. But if you're just in a cutlass and hand mining, you'd have to look at each individual rock, and it's very annoying. So each individual rock will have a bunch of gems that are quality 656. The one next to it might have 956 quality and things like that. So it's a bit annoying, I would say. So hand mining, there is almost no information about the quality. The gems, well, they don't stack at all. So there was 100+ gems in my inventory, all not stacked, even though they not even in quality. So there was like 10 656s, there were 10 957s, and so on and so forth, right? And in general, material quality felt random. So I went to Stanton at the beginning, and I was finding, you know, very similar variations from anywhere in the 400s up to the 900s of quality, right? I heard somebody found 1,000 quality as well. I went to Pyro, and it felt exactly the same. A similar thing with the mining UI was that, you know, the bottom right of the UI where your like inventory is, basically like what's in your cargo hold. Well, I mined multiple tin rocks, and there were 3 different qualities of tin, and there you can only see 5 or 6 materials. So when you're out looking for a bunch of stuff, guess what? I couldn't see all of the material that was in my inventory because things don't stack. So yeah, it's a bit weird. Maximum quality is 1,000, I believe. The best I found was 980 something. All right, I got a little kind of thing on my teleprompter here to help me figure out what we're going to talk about. But again, not the most important part of the test. I think material quality is in the test to just determine when you do craft that the material quality affects that craft. The actual enjoyment of the finding of things was not, I think, intended as part of the test. But I will say this, when you did come across something with 900+ quality, it felt really nice. It felt really, really good. When you saw something of 656 quality, it was like, well, that sucks, and that's crappy. And I will take a moment for this to just say this: the base quality of items that you could purchase at shops was at 0. So a 0 quality item made a base. A 0 quality commodity made a base item, right? So something that you would buy at the shop, that is a base item. Material quality affects it greater. So it appears that in this test that all items are base and crafting will just make better items. They have said at CitizenCon 2025 that crafting is progression. I don't believe that it will stay permanently that way. That would be a really boring game if, you fought high-end AI and they still had base weapons, right? So I don't assume that crafting is the only thing, right? But so I imagine there will be good items that drop from NPCs and stuff like that as well. It won't all be done with crafting, but yeah. So that's the thing. But again, I had a really good time with it, and it was quite enjoyable. I think one other thing that I will quickly touch on when it comes to the material is we had talked a little bit about this, where what do you do with like the crappy materials? That was the kind of feedback that I would give from this test. And again, I don't think material quality was a big part of it, but why would I use bad material, right? The only reference that I can gather from this is something that we saw at CitizenCon 2024, and that is this. How you upgrade a blueprint is by making lots of items. Well, if you look at the ideas that they had here, don't know if these are going to be actually how it works or not, but if we go by the ideas, making 100-volt pistols, why would I use my good quality on that when I can use my bad quality on that? And then the only thing it's asking for is to make 1-volt pistol with a really good fire rate, for, let's say, right? So things like that might be something you do with that. That was not in this test. So again, material quality does not feel like it was a big part of the test. It was just in the game to be there with crafting to say, hey, the quality of material does improve the stats that they're looking for improving there. And that was really it, right? So that was kind of my feeling with it. I had a really good time. It felt too random. I found way too many materials that were 900 plus quality, to the point where it was like, again, why would I use this other stuff? So I would dial that in a little bit better. And I do hope Pyro becomes a place that people want to go for the highest quality stuff. And then, now we're talking about piracy being in a place that makes sense and so on and so forth, right? And yeah. No refining, like I see this in the Twitch chat. There was no refining of old material, in like bad material into good material. There was only one situation where that worked. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk about like quality and stacking. I couldn't stack 600 quality material with 900 quality material and it average out. That was not a thing in this test. Okay, but we will talk, just wait on that a little bit, and we'll talk about it when we get to blueprints and fabricators, which is what I'll touch on now. It was the fabricator that we saw at SitCon 2024. So there it is. This was what we saw. And yeah, this was it right here, right? So we'll just go default view so it's full screen. This was it. So it's about 3 SCU long, 2 SCU high. You can use it with a tractor beam, even a small tractor beam. You can move it around. You can put it on a ship. Something that was very cool is it uses from your inventory. So if you have a bunch of material in your inventory, it will pull from that. So it's not what I was worried about a long time ago. If you remember watching that video, I was like, are you serious? We have to put 2 boxes at a time in this thing? That is incredibly tedious and super boring. Let's not do that. That would suck. And yeah, so they heard that, and it crafts directly from your inventory. You could even put this on a ship, be outside of the station, and like still be close enough to it that you can craft inside your ship, outside of a station. If you get too far away from it, though, you have to physically put the crafting material inside the fabricator to have it work. big thing to reference here is if we look at previous versions of the blueprint, you'll see that it says it requires 2 SCU of copper, aluminum, and 2 hadonite to craft this Volt pistol. No, that is not how it works in the actual playtest. It is not how it worked at all. It works in Centi SCU or CSCU. Centi, 100, is so 2 CSCU of aluminum would be, 2% of that 1 SCU box of aluminum. So that's, and sometimes even micro SCU, yeah. So you're like, a lot of people in the playtest were complaining that they had to go and mine, but they didn't ever look or use their brain here and go, well, I don't need to actually find that much of anything. I just need to find like a variety of things to be able to craft stuff, right? So it was very easy to get going and crafting. In the playtest, everything was limited time-wise to 1.5 minutes. No matter what recipes you did, it was going to take 1.5 minutes. No matter what refining you did, it was going to take 1.5 minutes. So they sped everything up, even though we had to go out and craft. So the big hurdle was finding items, yes, but it wasn't as big of a hurdle if you just spread out and looked for stuff. Mining in Star Citizen is very spread evenly. So, there's some materials that are just in Nyx, some materials that are just in Stanton, some materials that are just in Pyro, but for the most part, things are pretty evenly spread out, so it wasn't that bad. I was able to craft a ton of things. So the big thing is, Centi SCU used, keep that in mind when we get to the dismantling aspects and things like that, because it is very, very much a factor. Now, you can also buy more freight elevator or buy more fabricators. There's one in your freight elevator to start. There's lots of bugs where it would fall through the freight elevator. You could buy more. There were only 95 credits. You just have to go to the refinery deck to do it. So just remember some of this stuff when you actually do the playtest yourself, when they open this up to more people. Everything was done in this one fabricator, guys. Everything was done in this. There was no bigger fabricator for bigger weapons. If the item could not fit in this thing, and there were plenty of items that could not, it would just go straight to your freight elevator. That was it. It just wouldn't let you, wouldn't allow you to pull it out of this. I lost my initial fabricator right away. I had to go buy more. I was never actually able to take anything out of this fabricator. Never worked. I had to send everything to my freight elevator and, pull things out of my inventory. That's all. It was pretty simple, pretty easy, and no big deal. It didn't bother me at all. Blueprints, again, were the same for everybody. We all had the same blueprints. They were locked to these fabricators. So it wasn't like if I purchased some sitcon package with the P8AR in it, that I had a P8AR blueprint and you didn't. We all had the same blueprints. All the recipes were the same. Yeah. Now, there is a blueprint tab that was shown at CitizenCon 2024 right up here, but the blueprint tab was shown, but just the button for it. We never actually saw the blueprint tab anywhere. These extra tabs on the side were not, if I recall correctly, like for people who are wondering about skins, things like that, not an option in this test. Okay, so we'll start out with the blueprint tab, which was just a list of all the things that you could craft based on what blueprints you had. We were limited with what blueprints we had, but the icons looked very similar to what's on your freight elevator, kind of implying that you're going to be able to craft nearly every type of thing. So the icons were armor, clothing, FPS weapons, ship items, ammo, containers, sustenance, and other. So the only things that we could craft in the test were armor, FPS weapons, and ship weapons, not components. So no quantum drives, no shields, none of that stuff. You can craft more than one of the items, but you were limited to 4 jobs of actual crafting, like that were in the process of crafting at a given time. And it looked like you had about 14 that were complete, where you had to like send them to your inventory or pull them out of this container, and that was that. So you were able to do about 14 at a time before you had to walk up to it and interact with it in some way. And yeah, it was pretty simple. It was easy to understand. Anytime you went to go do a craft, it looked very similar to this with some minor changes. So I have a video of what I saw on my right monitor, which you can't see because it's an Evo, but I have this here, and they look incredibly similar. All they did was move these. They moved the gun here where the statistics are. They moved the statistics to this empty area here, and they moved the material right here. Okay? And then you have a button that would say, hey, do I want to use the best materials possible or the worst materials possible? And if you wanted to pick and choose, you would drag this 901 quality of aluminum, and you would pull it right into the aluminum box right here, and that would apply that. That's how that worked. It was very, very simple. And most of the FPS weapons, I think all actually, required just 3 items, and it was based on the frame, the stock, or the barrel. And then that was for ballistics. I was pretty much stuck to doing ballistics for the most part because all laser weapons required Hadonite or Dolivine or Aphorite, or every single Volt weapon required Janolite, for example, which was pretty cool. So it's a very similar system to this, except there was an additional couple of things that were right around here on the UI. One of them was byproduct item. So there might be something like slag in the future, as well as add-ons. Add-on, my guess, is your skin or something like that. That would be the indication that maybe there's a skin of some type that's available to you. So I hope that is, helps there on that aspect a little bit. Now, let's get back to what we were looking at real quick, because we're going to talk about stats. The stats of each armor that we could possibly address, but armor was very difficult because armor required new materials. I cannot remember the name of them. It doesn't really matter. But the armor required materials that you could not get in the game yet because you couldn't refine them. So the stats for armor were damage mitigation, min and max temperature, radiation, capacity, and dissipation. But again, because most of the items were made with materials not in the test, I was never able to craft armor. And the only item that you could craft armor with was like small helmets and flight suits or whatever, and they were undersuits, and they were made with silicon. I just never found silicon. FPS weapons are fairly similar to what you see on screen. These were the only things listed for us. Spread, reload speed, fire rate, impact force, recoil, kick, smoothness, and handling. So 3 recoil stats. Okay? I could not craft any weapon where spread or impact force or reload speed was changed, but every weapon I crafted, the fire rate and recoil stats were. Now, apparently, this was from Twitch chat, so, take that with a grain of salt. But snipers, if you made a sniper, which I was never able to make because of probably some material that I was missing, impact force was a thing. I don't even know what impact force does. The best I was able to do was improve an FS9 to have 12% recoil stats, and I went from 535 RPM to 591 on a kill shot. I went much higher on an FS9, and it was very much similar to the feelings that were seen. Actually, let's go here. The feelings that were seen here, were the difference in recoil. Maybe not that extensive, but it was noticeable similar to what they were trying to convey here at CitizenCon. So I will say that was really nice. And then if you tie that back to going all the way back to the material quality, that made that jackpot feeling of, wow, I found a 900 material quality thing, and I know that that's going to affect my fire rate, let's say, and that made me really excited. And that was like, oh, you know, if I'm going to give feedback on what I don't like, the fact that I knew that the material quality was meaningful, when I found good material quality, it felt good. That was fun, right? That was absolutely fun. There was no indication of durability in the playtest that I could see. I can't believe I waited this long. No new inventory. Everything was used in the old inventory with very like kind of goofy, crappy dev UI, right? It was nothing fancy looking, no holographics, none of that crap. It was good old dev UI, just functional, no form. More of that, honestly. Let's be real. There are some crazy builds where some of the weapons require like Hathor materials like Saldinium, and again, like I mentioned, all Volt weapons require Janolite, which is wild. Now, ship weapons, the stats on ship weapons were spread, reload speed, fire rate, and impact force. This used a lot of material from Nyx, so again, I was not able to go to Nyx in the playtest. They told us not to go there. So the best I was able to do was I found some Rysite or Rixite, or I don't know how to pronounce it, which is a pyro kind of rare material, and I was able to make some weapons with that. So I was mostly able to craft ballistic weapons because they were more simple in terms of the crafts, where a lot of those Nyx materials were used with the other ones, and I was only able to increase fire rate and impact force. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't put the weapon on my ship and put it to the test to see how much different it was. That would have been a smart thing to do. Craft a weapon that I already have on one of the ships that I own, put it on one wing, put it on another, and see the difference. I'm very sad to report I thought I covered everything. I should have done that, and I didn't, and I just thought of it now, so I apologize for that. But there was another thing, again, from Twitch chat, so take it with a grain of salt, where anytime that you reclaimed your ship with one of these crafted items, that item was lost. There's some copium there, that item insurance, and, oh, your crafted items are going to disappear. We don't know anything about that yet. And I will touch on that at the very end of the video. Dismantling is the last thing. It was very, very simple. Or here, you guys can see this in Twitch chat, but I'll touch on this. We did an ASCAV with 900 quality Hadanite, Dolovine, and Copper and Terranite, and it did only impact force to 9%. Well, yeah, if your Copper and Terranite was 0 quality, it's... Here's what I'll say, and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Let's go back to the blueprint screen here. This was a very, very important thing to touch on. Let's not just focus on the materials. Look at the thing above the material. Frame, wiring, condenser. A lot of the weapons say barrel on them. Barrel direct, like any item that you put into barrel, but it only accepts copper, let's say. Well, let's not use copper. Let's say aluminum is a thing in the barrel. The quality of the aluminum will only affect the fire rate. So barrel, like the place that you're placing the item affects the stats more than you would think. Not necessarily the like, I don't get to choose aluminum or I don't know, another metal, let's say. Just choose any metal. I don't know why I can't think of one right now. Gold. Like, I can't have a gold frame and something improves in a different way. Like weight or something like that goes up and integrity goes down or something. And misfires are better. Like that wasn't an option in this playtest. That doesn't mean it won't be an option in the future, but in the current playtest, it was, this is the recipe. 3 items, aluminum, sometimes twice, let's say, copper once. And the barrel affected the fire rate 100%, but also lightly affected the recoil. and then your frame and your condenser affected other things, right? So that was sort of how it works. So like in Nona Nelson's example where he said he used Hadanite and Dolivine that were good quality, but Copper and Terranite that were zero quality, and he didn't have any impact on other stats, it's because where the Hadanite and Dolivine went only impact the impact force stat and not these other things. So that's kind of how that works. I hope that's clear. I hope that's understandable. Once again, everything in the playtest was crafted at 1 minute and 30 seconds. And yeah, this was the same max that we were able to do and stuff like that. So, okay. What else? What else? I think we'll go into dismantling, which there's not much I can show you on that. It was just anything that you dismantled, you got 50% of the item back. It would have the exact same quality that you used it on. And since you're using Senti SCU, this was something that was very cool, but also horrible for the current inventory. 50% is fantastic, actually, because what it does is as you get better salvagers, base salvaging, things like that, the 50% gives you room to grow. As you make cooler stuff, better stuff, you can get more than 50% in the future, right? That's your progression that they talk about as crafting being progression, right? So you keep 50% of what you had, and you get the exact same quality back of the items that you had. So no reduction in quality. And again, since you're using Senti SCU, you will get back a 1 SCU container, but that container will have a small percentage of that item. So let's use the Volt Pistol example. I will get back, it was 722 quality. I will get back a 1 SCU container of 722 quality, but it will say 7% of that container is full. This is huff it, pure copium from me. Does that mean at some point in the future we can have an empty container that we pour these things into? Maybe. We could not combine anything. So when you dismantle, even if I made 4 Volt Pistols, it will dismantle each one of those individually. That's really dumb, I think, because then what it does is it will make a bunch of 7% filled 1 SCU containers of 722 quality aluminum, and I will never be able to combine those in the current game. That was a big problem, I think. Obviously, the material quality, the inventory, all that stuff was not a part of this test. It's still worth mentioning, but it's not. I'm not being overly critical about it. It's just something worth mentioning. Another thing, this is the only situation where you could combine qualities was if you did this. If I dismantled that Volt Pistol, and we'll go back here again. If I dismantled this Volt Pistol and we're using Senti SCU, I would get back 1 Senti SCU of aluminum, 1 Senti SCU of copper, and then 1 unit of Hadanite, so 1 gem of Hadanite back of the qualities that were listed there. Cool, right? All right. Now, since it requires 2 to make it, when I'm on my material screen deciding to craft this item, it will say in these boxes, which again are over here, that I don't have enough material yet. So if I happen to have, and I do, this is a great image for this, if I have 722 quality, now this says accumulated quality, that is not a thing in the playtest. So this is the only way to accumulate the quality. If I have 1 722 quality, well, actually, let's use the example that they're actually trying to give here. Let's say I have 1 quality of 544 here in aluminum, but it's only 1, and I don't have enough of, I don't have 2, which is needed to make the frame. I can add 1 901 quality, and what it'll do is it'll make the 722. That's the only way you can combine anything, is if you don't have enough to make the recipe. That is clearly not intended. That is clearly not what, I think that they want to do this accumulated thing. Because it will make our inventory a little bit cleaner, possibly. But if anyone's played Star Wars Galaxies, they do not combine the qualities. And I believe that they have the vast amount of quality that we have as well. Telehanes just said that's basically what they're going off of, is the Star Wars Galaxies crafting system. That's what they're basing the game off of. Somebody must have been a fan at the company, and that's the direction they want it to go. I will say, as we're closing up the video, I definitely prefer the Eve quality or the Eve way of doing things, which is much more simple. It's not having this quality thing, but at the same time, finding something of high quality felt amazing. So, yeah, that's like the positives and negatives of it. Eve was really good about simplifying the early stages of crafting. Tons of people use basic items in the game, so day one you can join the game and craft stuff that is relevant to the universe that is 20 years old. This system, I don't know how that will work, or whether it will or not. I still have not played Star Wars Galaxies yet. After playing this test, I gotta get a feel for it. So yeah, how much was there at one node? Was the whole area good quality? Good question. No. So I went to, let's say, a big node of a bunch of granite rocks. One rock would have 900 quality Terranite. The next rock you look at would have 400 quality Terranite. So it was odd that, like, you know, the quality varied so much in a small area. I would hope to see that change in the future. The other thing is there was no change to what they had spoken about doing, which was removing multiple materials from a single rock and only having like an aluminum rock, a copper rock, a Terranite rock, those kind of things. That was not in. Again, this was not a material quality playtest. This was not a new gathering system playtest. This was just a crafting playtest, and material quality only existed to see if you can improve the fire rate on things. And everything was like really nice. It was really, really, I found myself playing late and staying up late to just play. I didn't feel like I was testing. I wrote like 3 notes down. Most of the notes I wrote down was like just a few minutes ago, so I can try and simplify our discussions here. And I just had fun. Like, that's where I'll leave it, is I had a good time, and I have not had a good time in Star Citizen in a long time. And I didn't mind going out, and what it feels like, hopefully, is that miners are going to mine, salvagers are going to salvage, hand miners are going to hand mine. People that enjoy those things are going to find their place in the universe. But the last thing that I will say is all of this fun hinges 100% on their pay to win and their insurance systems that look incredibly pay to win, store focused, pushing you towards the store because of the advantages that it gives of never losing that item. So none of this fun will be fun if when I craft that Volt pistol that I never lose it, right? If crafters aren't constantly in demand, system games that you're basing these systems off of are not going to work. We know durability is a thing. I don't necessarily think that, you know, the player has to lose the item forever. Durability could be a thing. I prefer the player losing it, as coming from Eve. It just works so well that everybody looks at their items, like ships, weapons, components, everything, as ammunition to do what you need to do. And when you lose it, you just reload another magazine, right? And go again. And everything in the world is priced very well for that. And it just functions. So I felt great. It feels good. I had fun. And it all hinges on them now. Don't fuck this up, CIG. Don't fuck this up for us. And like, when your game designers make good game design, they always find a way to fuck it up. And that's my fear. And I really hope they don't. And that's that. So I'm so happy, but so cautious about my happiness and excitement because I'm afraid of what they'll do. And I really just hope they don't do it. And that's that. So again, trying to post more videos like this on YouTube and stuff while Twitch streaming and try to make things more sustainable for me. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I seemed like you enjoyed the last one, so hopefully you enjoy this one. We'll see.